Okay, this is part 74 of Nos4a2. The House of Sleep. Wayne could not sleep and had nothing with which to distract his mind. He wanted to throw up, but his stomach was empty. He wanted out of the car, but could see no way to manage it. He had an idea to pull out one of the wooden drawers and beat it against a window, hoping to smash it. But of course, the drawers wouldn't open when he tugged on them. He made a fist and threw all his weight into a tremendous haymaker, hit one of the windows with as much force as he could muster. A shivery, stinging jolt of pain shot up his knuckles and into his wrist. The pain did not deter him. If anything, it made him all the more desperate and reckless. He pulled back his head and drove his skull into the glass. It felt as if someone had set a 3-inch iron railway spike against his brow and pounded in it with Charlie Mannix's silver hammer. Wayne was snapped back into blackness. It was as terrible as falling down a long flight of stairs, a sudden stomach-turning plunge into the dark. His vision returned to him momentarily. At least he thought it was momentarily. Maybe it was an hour later. Maybe it was 3 hours. However long it had been, when his sight and thoughts had cleared, he found that his sense of calm had been restored as well. The inside of his head was filled with a reverberating emptiness, as if someone had played a great crashing chord on a piano some minutes ago, and the last echoes of it were now only fading away. A dazed lassitude, not entirely unpleasant, stole over him. He felt no desire to move, to shout, to plan, to cry, to worry about what was next. His tongue gently probed at one of his lower front teeth, which felt loose and tasted of blood. Wayne wondered if he had struck his head so hard he'd managed to partially jar the tooth out of its socket. The roof of his mouth prickled against his tongue, felt abrasive, sandpapery. It didn't concern him much, was just something he noticed. When he didn't move, when he did finally move, it was only to stretch an arm out and pluck his moon ornament off the floor. It was as smooth as a shark's tooth, and its shape reminded him a bit of the special wrench his mother had used on the motorcycle, the tappet key. It was a kind of key, he thought. His moon was a key to the gates of Christmasland, and he could not help it. The notion delighted him. There was no such thing as arguing with the light. Like seeing a pretty girl with the sunlight in her hair, like pancakes and hot chocolate in front of a crackling fire. Delight was one of the fundamental forces of being, like gravity. A great bronze butterfly crawled on the outside of the window, its furred body as thick as Wayne's finger. It was soothing to watch it clamber about, occasionally waving its wings. If the window was open, even a crack, the butterfly might join him in the back seat, and then he'd have a pet. Wayne stroked his lucky moon, thumb moving back and forth, a simple, thoughtless, basically masturbatory gesture. His mother had her bike, and Mr. Mannix had his wraith, but Wayne had a whole moon to himself. He daydreamed about what he'd do with his new pet butterfly. He liked the idea of teaching it to land on his finger, like a trained falcon. He could see it in his mind, resting on the tip of his index finger, fanning its wings in a slow, peaceful sort of way. Good old butterfly. Wayne would name it Sunny. In the distance, a dog barked, soundtrack of an indolent summer day. Wayne picked the loose tooth out of his gums and put it in the pocket of his shorts. He wiped the blood on his shirt. When he went back to rubbing his moon, his fingers spread the blood all over it. What did butterflies eat? He wondered. He was pretty sure they dined on pollen. He wondered what else he could train it to do, if he could teach it to fly through burning hoops or walk across a miniature tightrope. He saw himself as a street performer in a top hat with a funny black stick-on mustache. Captain Bruce Camaraderie's bizarre butterfly circus. In his mind, he wore his moon ornament like a general's badge right on his lapel. He wondered if he could teach the butterfly to do wild loop-de-loops like an airplane in a stunt show. The thought crossed his mind that if he could rip off a wing, and then it would fly in loop-de-loops for sure. He imagined that a wing would tear off like a piece of sticky paper, a slight resistance at first, then a satisfying little peeling sound. The window rolled itself down an inch, the handle squeaking softly. Wayne did not rise. The butterfly reached the top of the glass, beat its wings once, and sailed in to land on his knee. "Hey, Sonny," Wayne said. He reached out to pet it with his finger, and it tried to fly away, which was no fun. Wayne sat up and caught it with one hand. For a while, he tried to teach it to do tricks, but it wasn't long before the butterfly tired out. Wayne set it on the floor and stretched back on the couch to rest, a bit tired himself. Tired but feeling all right. He had milked a couple of good loop-de-loops out of the butterfly before it stopped moving. He shut his eyes. His tongue restlessly probed the prickly roof of his mouth. His gum was still leaking, but that was okay. His own blood tasted good. Even as he dozed, his thumb went on stroking his little moon, the glossy, smooth curve of it. Wayne did not open his eyes again until he heard the garage door rumbling into the ceiling. He sat up with some effort. The pleasant lethargy settled deeply into his muscles. Manic slowed as he approached the side of the car. He bent and tilted his head to one side, a querulous dog-like movement, and stared in through the window at Wayne. "What happened to the butterfly?" he asked. Wayne glanced at the floor. The butterfly was in a pile, both wings and all its legs torn off. He frowned, confused. It had been all right when they'd started playing. Mannix clucked his tongue. "Well, we have tarried here long enough. We had best be on our way. Do you need to go winky-wee?" Wayne shook his head. He looked at the butterfly again with a creeping sense of unease, maybe even shame. He had a memory of tearing off at least one wing, but at the time it had seemed exciting, like peeling the tape off a perfectly wrapped Christmas present. "You murdered Sonny," Wayne thought. He unconsciously squeezed his moon ornament in one fist. Mutilated it. He did not want to remember pulling its legs off, picking them off one at a time while it kicked frantically. He scooped Sonny's remains in one hand. There were little ashtrays set into the doors with walnut lids. Wayne opened one, stuffed the butterfly into it, let it fall shut. There, that was better. The key turned itself in the ignition, the car jolting to life. The radio snapped on. Elvis Presley promised he would be home for Christmas. Mannix eased in behind the steering wheel. "You have snored the whole day away," he said. "And after all of yesterday's excitement, I am not surprised. I am afraid you slept through lunch. I would have woken you, but I reckoned you needed your sleep more." "I'm not hungry," Wayne said. The sight of Sonny, all torn to pieces, had upset his stomach, and the thought of food, for some reason, had a visual image of sausages sweating grease, nauseated him. "Well, we will be in Indiana this evening. I hope you have recovered your appetite by then. I used to know a diner on I-80 where you could get a basket of sweet potato fries caked in cinnamon and sugar. There is a one-of-a-kind taste sensation for you. You cannot quit eating until they are all gone and you are licking the paper." He sighed. "I do like my sweets. Why, it is a miracle my teeth have not rotted out of my head." He turned and grinned at Wayne over his shoulder, displaying a mouthful of brown, mottled fangs, pointing this way and that. Wayne had seen elderly dogs with cleaner, healthier-looking teeth. Mannix clutched a sheaf of paper in one hand, held together by a big yellow paper clip. He sat in the driver's seat, thumbing through them in a cursory sort of way. The pages looked like they had already been handled some, and Mannix considered them for only half a minute before leaning over and shutting them in the glove compartment. "Bing has been busy on his computer," Mannix said. "I remember an era when you could get your nose sliced off for sticking it too far into another man's business. Now you can find out anything about anyone with the click of a button. There is no privacy and no consideration, and everyone is prying into things that aren't their affair. You can probably check on the intertube and find out what color underwear I have on today. Still, the technology of the shameless new era does offer some conveniences. You would not believe all the information Bing has dug up on this Margaret Lee. I am sorry to say your mother's good friend is a drug addict and a woman of low character. I cannot say I am stunned. With your mother's tattoos and unfeminine mode of speech, that is exactly the crowd I would expect her to run with. You are welcome to read all about Miss Lee yourself if you would like. I would not want you to be bored while we are on the road." The drawer under the driver's seat slid open. The papers about Maggie Lee were in them. Wayne had seen this trick a few times now and should have been used to it, but wasn't. He leaned forward and pulled out the sheaf of papers, and then the drawer banged shut, slamming closed so quickly and so loudly that Wayne cried out and dropped the whole mess on the floor. Charlie Mannix laughed, the big, hoarse hee-haw of a country shithead who had just heard a joke involving a K-I-K-E, a N-word, and a feminist. "You did not lose a finger, did you? Nowadays, cars come with all sorts of options nobody needs. They have radio beamed in from satellites, seat warmers, and GPS for people who are too busy to pay attention to where they are going, which is usually nowhere fast. But this Rolls has an accessory you will not find in many modern vehicles, a sense of humor. You'd better stay on your toes while you're in the Wraith, Wayne. The old lady almost caught you napping." And what a hoot that would have been, Wayne thought, If he'd been a little slower, there was a good chance the drawer could have broken his fingers. He left the papers on the floor. Mannix put his arm on the divider and turned his head to look through the rear window as he backed out of the garage. The scar across his forehead was livid and pink and looked 2 months old. He had removed the bandage from his ear. The ear was still gone, but the chewed ruin had healed over, leaving a ragged nub that was slightly more palatable to the eyes. Nos4a2 rolled halfway down the driveway, and then Mannix pulled to a stop. Bing Partridge, the gas mask man, was walking across the yard holding a plaid-patterned suitcase in one hand. He had put on a stained, dirty FDNY baseball cap to go with a stained, dirty FDNY t-shirt and grotesquely girlish pink sunglasses. "Ah," Mannix murmured. "It would have been just as well if you had slept through this part of the day also. I'm afraid the next few minutes may be disagreeable, young Master Wayne. It is never pleasant for a child when the grown-ups fight." Bing walked in a swift-legged way to the trunk of the car, bent and tried to open it. Except the trunk remained shut. Bing frowned, struggling with it. Mannix was twisted around in a seat to watch him through the rear window. For all his talk about how things were soon to become disagreeable, there was a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Mr. Mannix," Bing called, "I can't get the trunk open." Mannix didn't answer. Bing limped to the passenger side door, trying to keep his weight off the ankle that Hooper had gnawed on. His suitcase banged against his leg as he walked. As he put his hand on the latch for the passenger door, the lock banged down of its own accord. Bing frowned, tugged on the handle. "Mr. Mannix?" he said. "I can't help you, Bing," Mannix said. "The car doesn't want you." The wraith began to roll backward. Bing wouldn't let go of the handle and was pulled alongside. He jerked at the latch again. His jowls wobbled. "Mr. Mannix, don't go! Mr. Mannix, wait for me! You said I could come!" "That was before you let her get away, Bing. You let us down. I might forgive you. You know I have always thought of you as a son, but I have no say in this. You let her get away, and now the wraith is letting you get away. The wraith is like a woman, you know. You cannot argue with a woman. They are not like men. They do not operate by reason. I can feel that she is spitting mad at you for being so careless with your gun." "No, Mr. Mannix, give me another chance. Please, I want another chance." He stumbled and banged his suitcase against his leg once again. It spilled open, dumping undershirts and underwear and socks down the length of the driveway. "Bing," Mannix said. "Bing, Bing, go away. I'll come and play some other day." "I can do better. I'll do whatever you want. Please, oh please, Mr. Mannix. I want a second chance." Screaming now. "Don't we all?" Mannix said. "But the only person who has been granted a second chance is Victoria McQueen, and that's just no good, Bing." As the car backed up, it began to swing around to face the road. Bing was pulled right off his feet and collapsed on the blacktop. The wraith dragged him for several feet, squalling and yanking at the handle. Anything, Mr. Mannix, anything for you, my life for you." "My poor boy," Mannix said. "My poor sweet boy. Do not make me sad. You are making me feel awful. Let go of the door, please. This is hard enough." Bing let go, although Wayne could not say if he was doing as he was told or if his strength simply gave out. He flopped in the road on his stomach, sobbing. The wraith began to accelerate away from Bing's house, away from the burned wreck of the church up the hill. Bing scrambled back to his feet and jogged after them for perhaps 10 yards, although he was quickly outdistanced. Then he stopped in the middle of the road and began to beat his head with his fists, punching himself in the ears. His pink sunglasses hung askew, one lens smashed in. His wide, ugly face was a bright, poisonous shade of red. "I would do anything," Bing screamed. "Anything! Just give me one more chance!" The wraith paused at a stop sign, then turned the corner and Bing was gone. Wayne turned to face forward. Mannix glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "I'm sorry you had to see all of that, Wayne," Mannix said. Terrible to see someone so upset, especially a good-hearted fellow like Bing. Just terrible. But also a bit silly, don't you think? Did you see how he wouldn't let go of the door? I thought we were going to drag him all the way to Colorado." Mannix laughed again, quite heartily. Wayne touched his lips and realized with a sick pang in his stomach that he was smiling.